January, and let's just say we are picking up almost exactly where we left off last year. Month over month, the consumer price index increased 0.6% compared to the estimates of 0.5%. And year over year, the all items index increased 7.5% compared to economists' estimates of 7.3%. That 7.5 number is the highest we have ever seen year over year since 1982. So it's been a while. That was a year after I was born, and I turned 40 last year. So it's been a hot minute. Just going to throw that out there. In case you are wondering, core CPI is now 6%. So even the people that go, oh, well, you got to look at the core numbers. You can't take those fluctuating products like food and energy. Core CPI, 6%. That is still a massive number when talking about inflation. So speaking of one of those items that you take out when you're talking about core CPI, food prices saw a huge jump in January. They almost jumped 1 full percentage point. They were up 0.9%, and they are now up year over year 7%. Food prices, 7%. And when you break it down, it gets even worse. Meat, poultry, and fish saw the smallest growth for the month, so that was some relief, only up 0.3%, but are still up 12.2% year over year, followed by cereals and bakery products are up 6.8%. And fruits and vegetables up 5.6. Now, I did see, this was good news, bacon fell, I think, 1% month over month or 0.1%. It fell a little bit. So that was one of the meat products that actually saw a slight decline, which is why the month over month number wasn't that big. But we're still talking about double digits for most meat products across the board year over year. And here's something interesting. The spread between food at home and food away from home continues to grow. So now we got food at home is up 7.4% and food away from home is up 6.4%. So we got a 1 point spread there between those two categories. I mean, this continues. It'll be great for restaurants because you're going to have all these people like, why am I buying food and taking it home? I can just go eat at a restaurant. It'll be almost the same price. One of those other items that gets removed from core CPI, energy prices, well, they remain elevated, up 0.9% month over month, and now year over year in total, 27%. Gasoline prices, here's some relief, zero growth. Zero growth month over month, but still up 40% year over year. That's down, though, from the 49% year over year that we saw last month. So it's, better. I mean, it's 40% better than 49%, but we're still talking about gas prices up 40%. And anyone that's filled their car up lately knows that that's not a welcome sight or something that you want to see. Now, when it comes to commodities, still leading the pack by far, used car and truck prices jumped 1.5% month over month. So just from December to January, 1.5%. They are now up year over year 40.5%. That is a very large number. New vehicles, oddly enough, were number 2 in the commodity category. They were up 12.2% year over year. So, I mean, we're almost getting to like an arbitrage opportunity where you can like go buy a new car and then immediately try and sell it as a used car and possibly make money on that transaction. I bought a car about 6-7 months ago, and I'm not lying. I've thought like, I wonder if I were to sell this, if I could almost sell it for more than I paid for it. I don't know. I have to look at the numbers. Is there an arbitrage opportunity there? I'm not entirely sure. Tobacco was number 2. That product was up 7% year over year. Luckily, tobacco is not as widely used as it used to be back in the day, but there are still a lot of people that use tobacco products. That's up 7%. And apparel at number 4 was up 5.3% year over year. And then the big item, I think this makes up 1/3 of CPI, and rightfully so, because it's everyone's biggest cost, and that is shelter. And shelter prices continue to rise, though probably not as much as you would think. I mean, when you're looking at what home prices are doing year over year, when you look at this data, you're like, oh, that's actually not so bad. So shelter prices did rise. However, it was the lowest monthly gain since August 2021. For this January, we saw 0.4%, and year over year up 4.4%. And rents, interestingly enough, had a stronger month. I guess if you want to look at it that way, we're up 0.5%, but year over year, we're up 3.8%. And meanwhile, ownership was up 0.4% month over month, and year over year up 4.1%. So not long before rents probably overtake home ownership. And you can see that right now with just these rental markets going nuts. Rent prices are even crazier than what's happened with housing, even though housing is not settled down, as we have talked about many a times here on the podcast. So regardless of what category you look at, there's a really funny tweet that I saw. Someone said, if you take out food, energy, used cars, new cars, like all these categories, they said inflation's still up like 0.9% month over month. And if you annualize that, you're talking about 9%. And they're pointing out that like everything is hot right now. So this isn't just like for a while there was this, well, used car prices and new cars and energies, fluctuates and food prices fluctuate, but everything else is pretty normal. That's not the case anymore. Everything is hot. And so that, of course, leads to the next discussion that we've had this week here on the podcast. What's going to happen with the next Fed meeting? It was funny. I think it was on Wednesday's podcast. We discussed, I can't remember, it was an op-ed from, I think it was either the Journal or Bloomberg. And somebody said, well, that's it. The 50 basis point rate hike is gone. It's gone bye-bye. And then we had a piece in Bloomberg on Thursday from Steve Matthews, and I can't remember who the other gentleman was that wrote it. And they said, well, it actually depends on what happens with the CPI report. And so here we are. We have the CPI report. And, well, let's just say conventional wisdom is now leaning towards the 50 basis point hike in March. In fact, Neil Irwin over at Axios said on Twitter after the report, quote, I'm not saying a 50 basis point hike is going to be on the table in March, but I'm saying if Powell wants it to be on the table, they need to get moving on communicating that possibility. And if there's one thing we know about Jerome Powell and his tenure at the Fed is that he likes to telegraph his moves. He wants his moves known. He doesn't want to surprise the markets. Because there have been some people who have said they got to raise rates now. Whatever playbook he had, this inflation's out of control. He has to raise rates now. I don't think he's going to do that. At least that would be very out of character. Something else would have to be going on for him to make that move. So Neil Irwin tweets that and says, hey, he better start getting that messaging out there. I mean, maybe 2 hours later, Bloomberg reports St. Louis Federal Reserve President James Bullard said on Thursday that he has become dramatically more hawkish in light of the hottest inflation reading in nearly 40 years. And he now wants a full percentage point of interest rate hikes over the next 3 U.S. central bank policy meetings. Bullard told Bloomberg News not long after this report came out, saying, quote, I'd like to see 100 basis points in the bag by July 1st. With only 3 Fed meetings between now and July 1st, Bullard's comments point to at least 1 0.5% rate hike. And if you're going to do it, I mean, why wouldn't you just right out of the gate and just let everyone know where the Fed stands? So, Neil Irwin says that, and he was saying what most people were thinking, which is, hey, if they're going to do this, they better start laying the groundwork. And then boom, within 2 hours, the groundwork begins to get laid. And I will tell you, I've now also seen that Citigroup is predicting a 50 basis point hike at the March meeting. So it's pretty amazing. And I think it was Joel Weisenthal over at Bloomberg who was pointing out that, I mean, what was it, 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago, after the last Fed meeting? I think it was 3 weeks ago. And it was like, well, maybe there'll be another rate hike. Maybe there'll be one in March. It's likely there's going to be one. But there was still a question. There was still a question if there was going to be one. Now it's like, we're definitely going to have one. Is it going to now be 50 basis points? I mean, I've seen some predictions that it could be 75 basis points, which, I mean, that would surprise a lot of people. But there are some people who are saying, hey, it's not completely off the table. And who knows? I mean, we could have some other report come out. I mean, what if PCE came in just on fire? I'm at this point, I'm not writing anything off. I will say I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying what do they say? Never say never. I'm not going to do that. So we will see what happens. But that was a very hot report. And 7.5%. When's the last time? 82? It's been a while. And not only is it a long time ago, but it also means most people are not familiar with this type of inflation. We've had such low inflation for so long. It's going to be an even bigger shock to our economy because so many people just have never seen this before, including me. I mean, I was one when last time we saw inflation like this.